So far we've added into our game the ability to display the lap and the checkpoint that we're on. Now this type of information you don't necessarily see. In fact, you don't get to see the checkpoint because that's just for us as developers that it's in there. So instead, what we're going to do is convert that information into a place system so that the cars can display above them first, second, third, or fourth, depending on where they are in the race. So we're going to create a new script to calculate that information. And just before we start, I should mention that I have turned off all the mesh renderers on my checkpoints, and that's why you can't see them, but they are still there. So we're going to create a new script, and let's call that leaderboard. And most of the things that are going on here are going to be static. So we actually don't need a start or an update. So let's get rid of that. And it's not going to inherit from mono behavior. It is going to, however, use the link system. So make sure that you add in using system.link. So we want to store all of the stats about the player, which in this case is the position, in a little database, or at least we're going to put it into a dictionary, and that dictionary is going to be accessed by the car's rego number. So we need to generate a unique number that the car will be able to access or put information into this dictionary. First of all, I'm just going to create a little structure outside to hold this information. So we'll call it player stats. And later on, if you like to put other sort of information in here, like fastest lap or lap times or things like that, you could store it back into these stats. But for now, we're going to have a public string, and we'll send through the player name. And we'll also put a public int for the position. Okay, and then just a little constructor for player stats. So public player stats, and that will be a string n and an int p, and we will set those to name equals n and position equals p. All right, so that's our little structure that our dictionary will store in it, along with the unique ID for each player. So let's create a static dictionary, and it's going to have an int as the key and then player stats as the information that's in there. And then I'm going to call it LB for leaderboard, and that will be a new dictionary player stats rounded brackets. Then we need a static int cars registered, which is going to keep a count of the cars that have registered with the system and generate their ID. So I'll initially set that to -1, and you'll see why as we write this next method. So public static int register car string name. So the cars each will call this method to register themselves with the leaderboard, and when they do that, cars registered will be put up by a value of 1, so that the very first car registered is going to have a value of 0 as its registration or its unique ID. Okay, so then we'll put LB, so leaderboard.add, and we're going to add into there our car's registered number, and then a new player stats where we'll pass through the name for the name in the stats, and for the position we'll just put 0 initially because we haven't started the race at this point when this registration happens. And then we're going to from here return the car's registered number or index value, which goes back to the particular car, so it knows what its rego number is and can access its information. and I'm just missing a rounded bracket there, so add that in as well. Now, where are we going to actually call this register car? Well, it's got to happen before the start of the race, and so it should happen when everything kind of gets created. The whole reason for doing this calculation is that the name controller can display the position. So if we open up our name UI controller script that we've created, we can actually put it in here on its start so that it will set up the registration. So first of all, we're going to create an int and call it the car rego at the top here. And then in the start, we will get our car rego. So car rego is going to equal the leaderboard dot register car, and we will send it through our player name. So player name dot text. So it's going to register the player name, which will create a record in our dictionary and return whatever the rego number for this particular player is. So let's just save that. And there's nothing to actually demo or see at the moment. So let's go back to our leaderboard and keep working on that. So what we need to do with this leaderboard is keep it updated on the player's position, and then also be able to query it to find out what the actual position in the race is as far as first, second, third, or fourth. So what we tell it when we set our position is we actually tell it our lap and checkpoint that we're on, and it will calculate it in here. So let's put public static set position, and in here we will pass through our rego number so that we can keep that as the key into the dictionary, the lap, and the checkpoint. So let's calculate the position, int position, and that's going to equal, well, we have to figure out how it's going to be calculated. First of all, it's going to obviously have the lap. Now, the lap is going to be way more important than the checkpoint, so I'm going to multiply the lap by 1,000. So if you're on the second lap and everyone else is still on the first lap, no matter what checkpoint they're at, that car in the second lap is going to be in first position. So by multiplying lap by a number bigger than the number of checkpoints you've got, you're going to make sure that each time your cars go around a lap, their position value is much greater. So this is just calculating not the actual position as in first, second, third, or fourth, but just a value that we can use to determine what position we're in. So I'm just going to add plus checkpoint here. So if we're on the same lap, then the checkpoint will actually determine who's in front of who. Okay, so then we want to put that value into our dictionary. So we go leaderboard and we give it our rego number, which is nice and convenient, index into there, equals new player stats, the lb.rego, the lb.rego.name, so we just use the name that's already in there, and then our position that we've just calculated. And this is wanting a void here, so let's put that there. Okay, so that's our set position. Now, the majority of the work in here has to be done in get position. So when the name UI controller actually does a call to get position, you want to return a string that is actually got first, second, third, or fourth written in it, which means we need to get this dictionary into order according to the positions that we've calculated. So let's start. Public static string get position int rego. Now we're first of all going to declare an index. So int index equals 0. And then we're going to do a for each. So we're going to loop through our dictionary looking for the rego number, and then based on the position in the dictionary according to our index, it'll tell us whether we're in first position, second position, etc. And you'll see this in a moment. So the first thing we actually need to do is to order our dictionary, and it's going to happen inside of this for each. So for each, key value pair int player stats pos in lb dot order by descending. Okay, so we're putting this into descending order according to key dot value dot position. So if you have the greatest value of position in the dictionary, you're going to be right at the top of the dictionary, which means you'll have the very first index in the dictionary. So what we're going to do inside of this loop is actually just increase index, and then we're going to create an if pos.key. Now the pos key is going to be our rego values. So if it equals the rego we're looking for, then we're going to do a switch on index and look for, if index is 1, then our regoed car must be in first position. So we're going to return first, and we're going to do this for all 4 positions. So case 2, 3, and 4. So 2, 3, 4, and this will be second, third, and fourth. Okay, now if this doesn't work and we don't find anything in there, then we're going to return unknown. Though we should find something in there because we've registered all of the cars. Now that we have these methods, we can go back into our name UE controller and use them in there. So down in our late update, after we've got hold of our checkpoint manager, which we're getting our lap and our checkpoint from, we can call the leaderboard. So first of all, we want to call the leaderboard and go set position, and set position based on our rego. So we have our car rego, and then we have our lap we need to give it. So that's going to be the checkpoint manager dot lap, and then the checkpoint manager dot checkpoint. Pass that through. And what we'll do after we've done that is get the position back. So string position is going to equal our leaderboard dot get position, give it our car rego again. From there we can display the position. So in our text that we've got here for our lap display, we could actually at the top here add in position. So let's put position colon and then plus position, and then the lap, put a space in there. Now this might be a little bit too long to fit in that text box, so I'm actually going to get rid of that string that I just put in there, because we might see absolutely nothing. We want to see position, we want to see the lap and the checkpoint, but let's just get rid of this extra text in here, and let's get rid of checkpoint but leave the checkpoint inside of the brackets. Okay, and hopefully that's going to fit when we run it. So let's save that, and we will also save our leaderboard, which I haven't. Go back into Unity, press play, and let's have a look at our placing system at work. Right, so I'm currently, nobody's passed anything, so we're currently not in any position. You can see the first car that's gone off into the distance is obviously in first place. But did you see what happened when cars were bumping up against the player? Let's just have another look at that. So it's kind of working. So I'm just going to move my own player just off a little bit slower. And let's get myself into second. Now, see what happens? I'm in second and I'm getting bumped and I'm changing back and forward. But I am actually still in legitimate second place. But anyone who comes into the same checkpoint as me gets their position updated and kind of knocks me off the tree. So how are we going to determine that I was the first car that went through a certain checkpoint? And if I'm in front, well, then that's my position until someone else crosses a checkpoint that's in front of me. Well, we need to keep track of the time that you've also entered into the checkpoint. Right, so let's go back into our leaderboard just to fix the code up in here. And we need to record the time. So let's go up to the top in our player stats. So not only are we putting in a position there, but we also want to put in the time that we took that position. Public float time. And we'll also pass through the time when we create it here. So float t and then put time equals t just there. Now that means that when we add a record to our player stats, it needs a time. Now the first one we add is going to have a 0 in it because no one has any placings. But when we set the position down here, we need to pass through a time. So I'm going to go float time here, and then down in our player stats, we'll add time at the end. Okay, so we've got time in our dictionary as another means of ordering our position. So what we want to do is, first of all, we're going to order by descending based on the position that's calculated, but then we're going to order by ascending the time. So if you're the first that got second place, you hold on to second place. You don't get someone else who's come up behind you on the same lap and checkpoint number taking that position. So what we do in here with our link statement is that we can actually also put another dot and put a then by, which will allow us to sort it again. And this time we're going to put the key and then equals greater than key dot value dot time and another bracket. Okay, so then we'll be in ascending order within each position based on the time. So whoever hit that position first gets to be in that position. So that's all well and good. We've got our time in here. We can save that. Now, where does time come from? Well, let's go back to our UE controller where we're passing through our position. Down here in set position, we're passing through the lap and the checkpoint. Can we put in here time dot time? Is that going to give us the time that we've hit the checkpoint? Well, I'm not going to answer that for you now. I will in the next lecture, but before you get to that, just have a little bit of a think whether this is the right time. In fact, even put it in there and run the application to see if that makes any difference with our positioning system.